Hello and welcome to the Phoenix 5 Info Show. I'm your host, Lieutenant Vince Lewis, coming to you once again from Phoenix Police Headquarters in beautiful downtown Phoenix. I want to welcome back to the show my co-host, PIO Sgt. Rob Scherer.
Good to be here, boss. We're here with B-Bell, right?
Yes.
Got
So
one in.
we're actually our guest today. Let's just go ahead and bring him into the mix. PIO Sgt. And Silent Witness Team Leader, Sergeant Brian Bauer. We call him B-Bow for
B-Bow,
short.
right
You
there,
guys
yes.
call him that.
Yes.
And always happy to be here.
Thanks. So you've got a case for us today. I want to talk about Silent Witness Media Case 2024-4188. Now, this one in particular, just for this case, tips that lead to an arrest may garner an award of up to $7,000 cash. But why don't you go ahead and introduce us to the case today?
Yeah, so this is actually a DPS case. It was a homicide that happened on January 28th, 2024, just before 1 o'clock in the morning. Our victim here, Keith Henion, he unfortunately lost his life, but the backstory was he was in Vegas working for a Super Bowl contract, and he was driving home. So he told his family, you know, instead of staying the night, I'm going to drive home. I want to be with you. So this is a family man. He was described as being a loving father, son, husband, all of it. As he's driving home on the 202 near Alma School Road, there was a shot that was fired into his vehicle that ended his life. Unfortunately, his vehicle ran into the median of the freeway. There's no witnesses to say what happened, where the shot came from. There's a lot of speculations to it, but detectives for DPS, they're trying to figure out exactly who's responsible and hoping somebody out there might have heard something from somebody, a friend, to give them that piece of evidence that they need to go and find out who ultimately was responsible for this terrible crime.
So we're looking at, it was Sunday, January 28, 2024, at around 12:48 in the morning. So it's dark.
Yes.
This is nighttime. Yeah, this is going to be difficult, right?
What makes it helpful is there's not a lot of vehicles on the road. So that one person who was out and remembers that situation or remembers, oh, I saw the freeway was closed, maybe they saw something suspicious leading up to the shooting or something suspicious that happened after the shooting. And just those smallest details can really help the detective in this case be able to understand what took place, the before and after, and not really what happened that specific time. And that's what typically will lead them to the person responsible.
What was Keith driving?
So Keith was driving a newer Toyota truck, is white, 4-door, a larger vehicle. Again, it's a vehicle that not very many vehicles on the road at that time, it would stand out. Plus any other vehicles, suspect vehicles that might have been driving maliciously or driving suspiciously, that's going to stand out in a lot of people's attention, and hopefully they can call up, even if they don't have specifics, just I saw a suspicious vehicle driving on the freeway about this time. We can start putting those numbers together, figuring out time frame wise, and again, ultimately figuring out who did this.
So B-Bell, when you guys get a case like this, you guys are obviously, you're talking about a lot of potential witnesses. There's some things that somebody may have saw that night. Obviously, we know people talk, you know, and an incident like this, we've seen it on the media in a few arenas, and we'll get into that. But what other things can people come to you that maybe they weren't out here, but they've heard something, they have an eerie feeling about something? Can they bring anything to you guys to that will in essence maybe transition to that detective, and they can, you know, garner out what actually means something to the investigation?
Yeah, absolutely. So a lot of people assume that it has to have one of these flyers in order to be a silent witness case. Silent Witness is a program that offers cash rewards for any felony crimes. So it's any felony crime that affects your community. If you have a neighbor that's shooting a gun off in the air, if you have any kind of felony crime that you witnessed and you have information that will lead a detective to an arrest, that's what Silent Witness wants. That's the information that we need and will pay off for.
And talking about this case, so it's the murder of Keith Henion, who was 50. Again, just to review, this was Sunday, January 28th at about 12:48 overnight, roundabout milepost 12, which is on the 202 at about Alma School Road. Shot fired into the vehicle, struck Keith. He did not survive. We don't have any answers or any clues. This was assumed, the investigation was assumed by DPS, the Department of Public Safety, the troopers, the state troopers that showed up first. So you, me, Rob, we're Phoenix Police. Why are we here talking about a Mesa case?
Well, what's great about Silent Witness is we reach out to all agencies, mainly in Maricopa County, but we've gone extended and worked across the borders to the local Crime Stoppers. Crime Stoppers US is the parent company of Silent Witness. So we work across the board with all states because, as we know, crime is transitory. A criminal here in Phoenix might affect people over in California, vice versa. We've had recent situations where criminals flee. Well, Silent Witness is great at being able to push it out to all of the communities around us, to include other states, to find that person responsible. In fact, we've had one where we've reached out to Mexico. Knowing that the suspect for this homicide was in Mexico, we want to reach out through social media, through whatever means possible, to put that information out there so that somebody who has information will be able to provide that to the detectives. And again, there's no jurisdiction for Silent Witness. That's what's so unique about it. And Silent Witness has helped Phoenix, just like it has MCSO, DPS, and all the agencies around the valley.
So I know, obviously, you guys have flyers for each of these cases that you guys are involved in on the front end. We know I've seen you do plenty of media segments with some of this stuff, and obviously we have you on quite a bit talking about cases. What are some other things you guys do for these cases, specifically this one? I know you guys had a press conference a little bit ago. Tell me how you guys get to that point where you guys are coming here in this room and discussing whatever case happens to be up at that time, and including the family and some of those different variables that come in through a press conference.
So that's a great point. It happens all different ways. Sometimes it's the detective for that case that has just that little bit more information that they're looking for, and they ask me for advice. How can we present this case to the community to try to solicit more tips, more involvement from our community? So there's different ways. There's flyer hangers where we can go out with a family and we hang flyers. We'll document that on our social media pages so that the community knows what we're doing and what specific community it actually affected. Because there's a lot of times that people in Mesa, they don't really understand what affects West Valley cities and vice versa. So there's those kind of events. The press conference that you mentioned was on August 7th. And this is one that I work closely with the family, where we're provided information, pictures. Once I start gathering that information, and make sure that I'm as flexible as possible for the family. Because the last thing we want to do is host an event or put out some kind of information that the family just doesn't want to be put out there, because a lot of these are personal and private matters. So I gauge with the family. I work very closely with them and the detectives to make sure that everybody's on board with it. What's unique about this case as well is that reward is at $7,000, like LT mentioned. And that's because the family had the opportunity of putting more money into that reward for that specific case. So if there's anybody out there that's watching and they say that they have family that had a situation that happened that they want to provide more money to or extra funding, it's as simple as contacting Silent Witness at 480-WITNESS. Let the call taker know that you want to speak with the coordinator for Phoenix, Arizona. They'll get you in contact with me, and we'll be able to work that process. I have 2 excellent employees that process all the paperwork, doing the files, collecting the tips, providing those tips to the different agencies. And we're talking 1,000 tips a month. So it's a lot of work, but they're very passionate at what they do, and they enjoy seeing some of these cases come to a close because of the success of Silent Witness.
So we're talking with Sergeant Brian Bauer from the Silent Witness team and part of the Public Affairs Bureau here about media case 2024-4188, the homicide of Keith Henion back on January 28th overnight on the 202 at Alma School. You mentioned that there was a news conference that was held and family had contributed information, photos and stories and things like that. What did you learn about Keith, the person? What did you learn about him from that?
So I spoke with his wife, Elizabeth. They had 2 children, 2 wonderful children that were teenagers at this time. So they've all been affected tremendously from their loss. Elizabeth told me about how Keith was just a loving father. He was a loving husband. Again, he was coming back from Vegas. He had so much passion, so much love for his family that he would rather just drive back and get home sooner rather than later so that he could be at home with his family. That's the kind of person he was. He was a very charismatic person. He loved his work. They did mention a lot about the type of work that he did, which is incredible. He has this imagination bigger than I can ever think of. But he did a lot of that work through the Super Bowl and through these different events where his imagination allowed him put in all these different production things for the Super Bowl, for these different companies that he was contracted for. So again, he was a loving person, very intelligent, very smart, very thoughtful, and just enjoyed his life.
Yeah, this is tragic. So a reward of up to $7,000 available for any tips that could lead to an arrest in the case of Keith Henion, who was tragically shot, unknown circumstances, but definitely died from his gunshot wound injury that took place January 28, 2024 at about 12:48 a.m. on the 202 near Alma School. That reward is up to $7,000. I don't know if you could talk about this or not, because we respect Silent Witness tremendously for the amount of lengths they go to keep their tipsters anonymous, and we know that. We've said it over and over again. But tell us, where did the funds typically come from for the Silent Witness rewards? Are you able to talk about that?
Yeah, absolutely. So there's a lot of different ways that Silent Witness provides the funding. It's a nonprofit organization, so all the money that they collect, it goes right into these rewards and making the organization better. So a lot of the rewards come from these different events that Silent Witness hosts. One of them that's coming up very recently is November 22nd of this year. 7 o'clock is the check-in time, but it's not too late to purchase tickets if you want to. It's the golf tournament. This is one of their biggest events that they host. It garners the most amount of money and funding. And again, the importance of it is every case that comes out that's a homicide or a fatal accident, Silent Witness puts $2,000 to each of those cases.
Right
Any
off the
other
top.
felony, yep, right off the top. Any other felony case, it's $1,000. And that's without any added extra money from families, friends, or any of the community members. So that's where a lot of the funding goes to. With this golf tournament that's coming up, like I said, on November 22nd, they sell tickets for a foursome for $1,000. It's a great opportunity to go out there with your friends, enjoy the weather, enjoy the golfing experience. What's also unique that we've started is at these events, we bring in one of the family members that was affected through Silent Witness, whether they lost a family member or they were related to Silent Witness somehow. It just shows a really moving and a better understanding of why we do what we do, whether it's as a police officer, as a community member, or that person that wants to submit that anonymous tip. It shows the importance of the program, and it really shows the importance that it means to those family members.
Yeah, it's just a great way. Your guys' organization and the team you guys lead, it's a great way to really bridge that gap between the public and us. I know there's a lot of people, with crime and potential witnesses that have information. That anonymous element's important to them. And obviously, money is what money is, and it drives, and that's part of this program. But coming from investigations for as long as I was in it, the investigations that I work were directly impacted by your guys' team. The work you guys do, being able to get some of that information that we as investigators may have not been able to get just doing what we normally do, is impactful to the community. It's impactful to investigations. And you guys really, I think you guys all take a personal, you take it personally being involved in some of those investigations and really bringing a lot of them to a close. So your organization does great work. I commend you guys.
Yeah, thanks, Sarge. Thanks to your team. Thanks to the Silent Witness Board. And just to recap right now, where we were talking today about media case 2024-4188, the homicide of Keith Henion, back on January 28th, which was a Sunday at 12:48 a.m. Milepost 12 on the 202 at about Alma School in the East Valley. So I want to thank my co-host, Rob Scherer, for joining us. Thank you, Sarge, for helping us with that information about this case. Again, we were covering media case 2024-4188, the homicide of Keith Henion, which took place on Sunday, January 28th, 2024 at about 12:48 a.m. on the 202 at around Alma School, which is milepost 12. If you have any information about this or any case that you find out on silentwitness.org, please send those tips. You too can help fight crime in your community by sending tips to Silent Witness. Visit silentwitness.org or call 480-WITNESS. You can join us on all social media platforms. Silent Witness is on social media as well. We're hiring. Go to joinphxpd.com. And remember, we're all in this together.